The chandelier in the Ashford estate's grand foyer cast fractured rainbows across the marble floor, turning the entryway into something that belonged in a palace rather than a private home. Vanessa Clark stood frozen in the doorway, her worn duffel bag clutched in both hands, trying very hard not to look as terrified as she felt. The house, if you could even call it that, sprawled before her like something out of a period drama, all soaring ceilings and gleaming surfaces and the kind of silence that only extreme wealth could buy. She'd grown up in a 2-bedroom ranch house in suburban Connecticut, where you could hear every conversation through the thin walls, and the kitchen linoleum was permanently stained from decades of family dinners. This place made her childhood home look like a garden shed. Vanessa had been a registered nurse for 5 years, specializing in home care for post-surgical patients and those recovering from serious injuries. It was demanding work, often emotionally exhausting, but she loved the intimacy of it, the way she could really get to know her patients, become part of their recovery journey, rather than just another face in a busy hospital corridor. She'd cared for elderly stroke victims, middle-aged heart attack survivors, young athletes recovering from torn ligaments. But she'd never, in her entire career, been assigned to someone like Marcus Ashford. "Miss Clark," the voice startled her out of her paralysis. A woman in her late 50s materialized from a side hallway, her gray hair pulled into an immaculate bun, her black dress and white apron so perfectly pressed they looked like they'd never been worn before. "I'm Mrs. Henderson, the head housekeeper. We've been expecting you. May I take your bag?" Vanessa looked down at her duffel, with its fraying strap and faded university logo, and felt a wave of inadequacy wash over her. "I can carry it, thank you." Mrs. Henderson's expression didn't change, but Vanessa detected the faintest hint of amusement in her eyes. "As you wish. Follow me, please. I'll show you to your quarters, and then take you to meet Mr. Ashford." They walked through hallways that seemed to stretch forever, passing rooms that Vanessa caught only glimpses of, but that all looked impossibly elegant. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a dining room with a table that could seat 20, a sitting room with furniture that probably cost more than Vanessa's annual salary. Her sneakers squeaked slightly on the polished wood floors, an embarrassing reminder that she didn't belong in a place like this. "Mr. Ashford's bedroom is on the 2nd floor, east wing," Mrs. Henderson explained as they climbed a sweeping staircase. "Your room is directly adjacent, connected by a door so you can respond quickly if he needs assistance during the night. He's still quite immobile, I'm afraid. The accident was very serious." Vanessa had read the file. Marcus Ashford, 34 years old, CEO of Ashford Global Industries, had been in a helicopter crash 3 weeks ago while traveling to his company's manufacturing facility upstate. The pilot had been killed instantly. Marcus had survived, but sustained multiple injuries: fractured pelvis, broken leg, 3 cracked ribs, and a severe concussion. He'd spent 2 weeks in the hospital undergoing surgeries and intensive treatment. Now he was home, but his recovery would take months. He needed round-the-clock care, help with basic activities, physical therapy, medication management. That's where Vanessa came in. "Here's your room." Mrs. Henderson opened a door and stepped aside. Vanessa walked in and had to suppress a gasp. The room was easily twice the size of her entire apartment, with a queen-sized bed covered in what looked like silk sheets, an antique dresser, a small sitting area with a velvet loveseat, and French doors that opened onto a private balcony overlooking manicured gardens. "This is where I'm staying? Is something wrong with it?" Mrs. Henderson asked, that hint of amusement back in her voice. "No, it's just, I expected something more like, I don't know, a normal guest room." "This is a normal guest room, Miss Clark. You should see the master suites." Mrs. Henderson moved to the connecting door. "Mr. Ashford is just through here. Are you ready to meet him?" Vanessa took a deep breath, smoothing down her navy blue scrubs. She dressed professionally, pulled her auburn hair into a neat ponytail, made sure she looked competent and capable. But standing here, about to walk into a billionaire's bedroom, she felt like a kid playing dress-up. Ready as I'll ever be. Mrs. Henderson knocked twice on the connecting door, then opened it without waiting for a response. "Mr. Ashford, your nurse has arrived." The bedroom beyond was enormous, dominated by a massive four-poster bed where a figure lay propped up against a mountain of pillows. Heavy curtains were drawn against the afternoon sun, leaving the room in comfortable dimness. Vanessa could make out medical equipment, a wheelchair folded in the corner, prescription bottles lined up on the nightstand. And in the bed, watching her with dark, assessing eyes, was Marcus Ashford. Vanessa had seen his photo in the file, of course, but the clinical headshot hadn't prepared her for the reality of him. Even injured and confined to bed, even with dark circles under his eyes and an obvious pallor to his skin, Marcus Ashford was striking. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with several days' worth of stubble, black hair that fell across his forehead in a way that suggested he usually kept it more controlled. He wore a gray t-shirt that did nothing to hide the breadth of his shoulders, and his right leg was encased in a cast from hip to ankle, elevated on pillows. "So you're the nurse," he said, his voice a deep baritone rough with disuse. It wasn't a question, and his tone wasn't particularly welcoming. "You look young." Vanessa felt her spine straighten instinctively. She'd dealt with difficult patients before, people who took their pain and frustration out on their caregivers. She knew how to handle it. "I'm 27, and I've been a nurse for 5 years. I'm perfectly qualified to provide the care you need, Mr. Ashford." "Marcus," he corrected, still studying her with those intense, dark eyes. "If you're going to be living in my house, helping me bathe and dress and all the other humiliating necessities of my current existence, you might as well call me Marcus." "All right, Marcus, I'm Vanessa Clark, and there's nothing humiliating about needing help while you recover. You've been through a traumatic injury. Accepting assistance is part of the healing process. How very therapeutic of you." Was that sarcasm? Vanessa couldn't quite tell. His expression gave nothing away. "Mrs. Henderson, you can go. I'm sure Vanessa and I need to discuss the parameters of our arrangement." The housekeeper nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Suddenly, the room felt much smaller, the air charged with something Vanessa couldn't quite name. She moved closer to the bed, her nurse's instincts kicking in, assessing his positioning, the way he held his torso carefully, the tightness around his eyes that suggested he was in more pain than he wanted to admit. "When was your last dose of pain medication?" she asked, pulling out the small notebook she always carried. "I don't want pain medication. It makes me foggy, and I have work to do." Vanessa looked up from her notes. "You just got out of the hospital 3 days ago. You have a fractured pelvis. You shouldn't be working." "I run a multi-billion-dollar company. I don't have the luxury of not working." His tone was sharp, brooking no argument. "You also don't have the luxury of ignoring your body's need to heal," Vanessa countered, matching his firmness. "If you don't manage your pain properly, you'll tense up, which will slow your recovery and could cause additional complications. So, I'll ask again. When was your last dose?" They stared at each other for a long moment, a silent battle of wills. Vanessa had learned early in her career not to back down from patients who thought they knew better than medical professionals. Finally, Marcus looked away. "This morning. 6 hours ago. You're due for another dose now. I'll get it." She moved to the nightstand where the prescription bottles were lined up. "Are you experiencing any nausea? Dizziness? Difficulty breathing?" "No, just pain. Everywhere." The admission seemed to cost him something. Vanessa measured out the correct dosage, poured water into a glass from the pitcher on the nightstand, and handed both to Marcus. He took them with his left hand, his right arm moving stiffly, and Vanessa noted that he also seemed to be favoring his ribs on that side. Once this kicks in, I'd like to do a full assessment. Check your mobility, your range of motion. See where we are with your healing. You sound like the physical therapist who came to the hospital. She was a tyrant. Good physical therapists usually are. It means she cared about your recovery more than about being liked. Vanessa pulled over a chair and sat down, keeping her posture professional but relaxed. I need to understand what we're working with so I can create a care plan. Your doctor's notes say you should be attempting to sit up more, maybe even stand with assistance within the next week. Marcus looked at her like she'd suggested he climb Mount Everest. Stand? I can barely shift positions in bed without feeling like my pelvis is being torn apart. That's the fracture. It's going to hurt for a while. But gentle movement actually promotes healing. Lying still for too long can lead to blood clots, pneumonia, muscle atrophy. We need to start getting you mobile, even if it's just sitting in the wheelchair for short periods. You're enjoying this, Marcus said suddenly, a hint of accusation in his tone. Ordering around someone who's used to being in charge. Vanessa met his gaze steadily. I'm not enjoying watching you suffer, if that's what you're asking. But I do take satisfaction in my work, yes. And my work, right now, is making sure you recover as fully as possible, even if that means pushing you to do things that are uncomfortable. If you have a problem with that, you should request a different nurse. The words hung in the air between them. Vanessa held her breath, wondering if she'd just talked herself out of the highest-paying job she'd ever had. The agency had been very clear. Marcus Ashford was an extremely important client. Keep him happy, don't cause problems. And here she was, on day one, basically challenging him. But then, surprisingly, Marcus's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. You've got spine, I like that. Most people are too busy kissing my ass to tell me what I actually need to hear. Vanessa felt something relax in her chest. I'm not here to kiss your ass, Marcus. I'm here to help you heal. Those are two very different jobs. Noted. He shifted slightly against his pillows, wincing. How long have you been doing home care? 3 years. Before that, I worked in a hospital, post-surgical recovery ward. I switched to home care because I prefer the one-on-one attention, the ability to really focus on a single patient's needs rather than juggling 12 people at once. And you chose to take my case? The agency must have told you I'm not the easiest patient. Vanessa allowed herself a small smile. They may have mentioned something along those lines. Apparently, you've gone through 4 nurses in the past 3 weeks. They were incompetent. Or, you were impossible. She said it lightly, without judgment, just stating a possibility. Marcus actually laughed, though it turned into a wince and a carefully controlled breath. Don't make me laugh. Hurts the ribs. Sorry, I'll try to be less amusing. Vanessa stood, moving around to the other side of the bed to check the positioning of his injured leg. Who's been handling your care since you got home? Mrs. Henderson mostly. And my assistant Richard stops by twice a day to help me with work and personal needs. But neither of them are medical professionals, and my doctor insisted I needed proper nursing care. He watched her as she gently examined the cast, checking for swelling or signs of circulation problems. You have gentle hands. The observation was clinical, not flirtatious, but it still made Vanessa's cheeks warm slightly. Part of the job. Okay, everything looks good here. No swelling, good color in your toes. How's the itching? Maddening. Is there anything that can be done about that? I can show you some tricks. A hairdryer on cool setting can sometimes help, or a long, thin object carefully inserted to scratch without damaging the skin or the cast. But mostly, it's just something you have to endure. She moved back to her chair. Tell me about your typical day before the accident. What time did you wake up? What kind of physical activity did you do? Over the next 30 minutes, Vanessa asked questions and took notes, building a picture of Marcus's life before the crash. He woke at 5 every morning, ran 6 miles, showered, and was at his desk by 7. He worked 12 to 14-hour days, traveled constantly, ate most of his meals at his desk or in restaurants during business meetings. He barely slept, driven by what Vanessa recognized as an obsessive need to control every aspect of his company. "You're going to hate the next few months," she said, when he'd finished describing his pre-accident routine. "Why?" "Because recovery is about letting go of control. You can't force your body to heal faster. You can't power through pain the way you apparently power through everything else in your life. You have to be patient. Follow the process. Trust that your body knows what it's doing." Marcus stared at the ceiling. "I don't do patient well." "I noticed, but you're going to have to learn." Vanessa stood, tucking her notebook into her pocket. "I'm going to let you rest now. The pain medication should be taking effect. I'll come back in 2 hours to help you with dinner, and we can discuss the plan for tonight." "Wait." Marcus's voice stopped her at the door. "The other nurses, the ones who didn't work out, they treated me like I was made of glass, or like I was some kind of god because of who I am. I couldn't stand it." Vanessa turned back to him. "And you're telling me this because I want you to know that if you keep treating me like a regular patient, like a real person, instead of a billionaire or a fragile victim, you'll be the first nurse who doesn't drive me absolutely insane." She studied him for a moment, seeing past the gruff exterior to the fear and frustration underneath. "Deal. But that also means when I tell you to do something for your recovery, you do it. No arguing, no pulling rank, no, I'm Marcus Ashford and I don't take orders. Understood?" "Understood." His eyes were already drooping, the medication finally relaxing him. "Vanessa." "Yes?" "Thank you for not, being weird about all this." "You're welcome. Now sleep. You need it." Vanessa slipped through the connecting door back into her room and closed it softly behind her. She leaned against it for a moment, letting out a long breath. Her first interaction with Marcus Ashford had gone better than she'd expected, but she could already tell this assignment was going to be challenging in ways that had nothing to do with his medical needs. There was something about him, something intense and magnetic even in his diminished state, that put her on edge in a way she didn't quite understand. She pulled out her phone and texted her best friend Lily. "Made it to the estate. Patient is grumpy, demanding, and probably going to make my life hell. But at least the accommodations are nice." Lily's response came immediately. "Pics, or it didn't happen. Is he as hot as his Forbes photo?" Vanessa smiled despite herself. "I'm not answering that. Professional boundaries, remember?" "That's a yes. I knew it. You're living in a billionaire romance novel. Please tell me he has a tragic backstory and a secret heart of gold." "Goodbye, Lily. Some of us have actual work to do." But as Vanessa unpacked her clothes into the antique dresser, she couldn't help thinking about Lily's joke. A billionaire romance novel. That's exactly what this situation would seem like to an outside observer. Isolated estate, gorgeous wealthy man, live-in nurse. It was practically a trope. Except this was real life, and real life didn't work like romance novels. Marcus Ashford was her patient, nothing more. He was paying for her professional services, and she would provide them with competence and appropriate boundaries. That's what good nurses did. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from the nursing agency. "Just checking in on your first day. Mr. Ashford's assistant called to confirm your arrival. Please keep us updated on his progress, and let us know immediately if there are any issues. Remember, Mr. Ashford is one of our most important clients." Vanessa sighed. Right. most important client. Translation: don't screw this up. Her salary for this assignment was 3 times her normal rate, enough to finally pay off her student loans, and maybe even start saving for her own place instead of renting. She couldn't afford to lose this job, which meant she couldn't afford to see Marcus Ashford as anything other than a patient, no matter how intense his dark eyes were, or how that rare smile transformed his face. She finished unpacking and was just considering exploring the rest of the house when a loud crash came from Marcus's room, followed by a muffled curse. Vanessa was through the connecting door in seconds, her heart pounding. Marcus was half out of bed, twisted awkwardly, his face contorted in pain. The water pitcher from his nightstand lay shattered on the floor, water spreading across the hardwood. What happened? Vanessa rushed to his side, carefully assessing his position. I tried to reach the pitcher. Stupid. I thought I could manage it. His breath was coming in short gasps. Don't move. Let me help you. Vanessa quickly supported his weight, easing him back onto the pillows with practiced efficiency. Are you hurt? Did you twist anything? Just my pride. But his face was pale, his forehead beaded with sweat. I'm going to check your injuries. Vanessa's hands moved over him professionally, checking the cast, feeling along his ribs, watching his reactions. Everything seems okay. You didn't reopen anything. But Marcus, you can't try to do things alone. That's literally why I'm here. I'm not used to asking for help. His voice was tight with pain and frustration. Well, get used to it. For the next few months, asking for help is your new full-time job. Vanessa hit the call button she'd noticed on the nightstand. I'm going to have someone clean up this glass. You're going to lie still and not try to be Superman again. Mrs. Henderson appeared within minutes, took in the scene with practiced calm, and dispatched someone to clean up, while Vanessa got Marcus repositioned comfortably. By the time the glass was cleared and fresh water provided, Marcus's pain medication had worn off enough that he was obviously suffering. I can give you another half dose, Vanessa offered. It won't knock you out, but it'll take the edge off. Fine. He didn't even argue this time, which told Vanessa how much pain he was really in. Once he'd taken the medication, Vanessa sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to help if needed, but giving him space. Marcus, I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll use the call button. Day or night, if you need anything. Anything at all. You call me. Don't try to tough it out or do things yourself. You could seriously hurt yourself, or undo the healing you've already achieved. Can you promise me that? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't like being helpless. You're not helpless. You're recovering. There's a difference. Vanessa's voice was gentle but firm. You survived a helicopter crash that killed another person. Your body is doing incredible work right now. Knitting bones back together, healing trauma, fighting off infection. That's not helpless. That's powerful. But it takes time, and it requires you to accept help during the process. Marcus turned his head to look at her, really look at her, and Vanessa felt something shift in the air between them. You're not like other nurses I've met. Because I lecture you? Because you see me, not my bank account or my company or my reputation. Just me, the person in this bed who's struggling. Most people can't do that. Vanessa felt her throat tighten unexpectedly. Well, that's the job. Seeing the person, not the patient profile. She stood, needing to reestablish some professional distance. I'm going to make you some dinner, something soft, easy to digest, and then we'll get you cleaned up and settled for the night. Sound good? You don't have to cook, Mrs. Henderson. I like cooking, and I need to make sure you're eating properly. Medical nutrition is part of recovery. She was already heading for the door. Any allergies or foods you hate? No allergies. And I don't hate any food. but I haven't had much appetite lately. We'll fix that. Rest for now. I'll be back soon." Vanessa made her way downstairs, following Mrs. Henderson's earlier directions to the kitchen. It was, predictably, massive and equipped with restaurant-grade appliances. She found the housekeeper there, preparing what looked like a roast chicken. "I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to make something for Marcus's dinner," Vanessa said. "Something light and nourishing." Mrs. Henderson looked up from her work, and her stern expression softened slightly. "He tried to get the water himself, didn't he? How did you know?" "Because he's been trying to do everything himself since he got home. Nearly gave me a heart attack twice already. Maybe he'll listen to you." She gestured to the refrigerator and pantry. "Help yourself to whatever you need. I'm glad someone's finally going to make him eat properly." Vanessa found fresh vegetables, chicken broth, and rice. She set about making a simple, soothing congee, adding ginger and green onions for flavor. As she cooked, she thought about what Marcus had said, that she saw him. It was true, she realized. When she looked at him, she didn't see a billionaire or a CEO. She saw a man in pain, frightened by his loss of control, struggling to reconcile his identity as a powerful business leader with his current helpless state. She saw someone who needed care, yes, but also someone who needed to be treated with dignity and respect, not pity or worship. The congee was ready in 30 minutes. Vanessa ladled it into a bowl, placed it on a tray with crackers and herbal tea, and carried it back upstairs. Marcus was awake, staring at his laptop, which was propped on a specially designed table across his bed. "Working?" Vanessa asked, setting down the tray. "Trying to. I have a board meeting tomorrow via video conference. I need to be prepared. You also need to eat." Vanessa adjusted the bed table, positioning the congee where he could reach it easily. "Can you manage the spoon, or do you need help?" He looked at the bowl, then at her. "I can manage. What is this?" "Rice congee. It's comforting, easy to digest, and packed with nutrients. My grandmother used to make it whenever I was sick. It's basically a hug in a bowl." Marcus picked up the spoon with his left hand, his movements awkward, but determined. He took a cautious bite, then another. "It's good. Really good. Don't sound so surprised. I told you I like to cook." Vanessa sat in her now familiar chair, pulling out her notebook. "Tell me about tomorrow's board meeting. How long will it last?" 2 hours, probably. We're discussing the Q3 earnings and the expansion into Asian markets. Okay. So, you'll need to be sitting up in the wheelchair. We should practice that tonight. Get you used to the transfer process. And you'll need to be dressed properly. Upper body, at least. Marcus paused mid-bite. "You've really thought this through. It's my job to anticipate your needs. You're worried about the meeting, I can tell. So let's make sure you're as comfortable and prepared as possible." She made a note. "What time is the meeting?" 10 in the morning. We'll get you up at 8. Do your morning routine. Medications. Transfer to the wheelchair. That'll give you time to settle before the video call." She looked up. "But Marcus, you need to promise me something else." "What now?" 2 hours is a long time to sit with your injuries. If the pain gets too intense, you end the meeting. Your recovery is more important than any business deal." He set down his spoon. "Vanessa, you don't understand. This company, it's everything. If I show weakness, if the board thinks I can't handle things, they could what? Fire you? You're the CEO and majority shareholder. They need you more than you need them." She leaned forward. "Marcus, I get it. Your identity is wrapped up in your work. But right now, your most important job is healing. Everything else is secondary." They stared at each other again. That same battle of wills from earlier. Vanessa didn't blink, didn't back down. Finally, Marcus nodded slightly. "Fine. If it gets too painful, I'll excuse myself. Good. Now finish your kanji. You've only eaten half. He smiled, that same rare transformation of his face. You're bossy when you're in nurse mode. You have no idea. Wait until we start physical therapy. Then you'll really see bossy. Marcus actually laughed this time, carefully holding his ribs. I'm looking forward to it. I think. The board meeting the next morning went better than Vanessa had expected. She'd gotten Marcus up, helped him through his morning routine with as much dignity as she could preserve given the intimate nature of the care, and transferred him to the wheelchair with only minor difficulty. He'd insisted on a dress shirt and tie for the video call, and Vanessa had obliged, though she'd left the shirt unbuttoned at the bottom to avoid pressure on his injured pelvis. From the chest up, he looked every inch the powerful CEO. From the chest down, he wore soft sweatpants and compression socks to prevent blood clots. Vanessa stayed in the room during the meeting, positioned out of camera range, but close enough to intervene if needed. She watched Marcus transform before her eyes. The man who'd been awkwardly spooning kanji the night before became commanding, articulate, and absolutely in control. He fielded questions about the company's performance, discussed expansion strategies, addressed concerns about his recovery with a casual confidence that made it seem like leading a multi-billion-dollar corporation from a wheelchair was perfectly normal. But Vanessa could see what the board members on the screen couldn't. The way his left hand gripped the wheelchair arm with white-knuckled force, the tightness around his eyes that intensified as the meeting wore on, the careful, shallow breathing that suggested his ribs were screaming. At the 90-minute mark, Vanessa stood and moved into his peripheral vision, tapping her watch. He shot her a look that clearly said, "Not now," but she didn't back down, tapping her watch again more insistently. "Gentlemen, I'm afraid I need to wrap this up," Marcus said smoothly, interrupting a vice president mid-sentence. "My medical team has strict orders about how long I can sit up. Richard will follow up with detailed notes. Thank you all for your time." He ended the video call and immediately slumped in the wheelchair, his face going gray. "Get me back to bed, please." Vanessa was already moving, releasing the wheelchair brake and positioning herself to assist. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Together, they managed the transfer, and Vanessa quickly elevated his injured leg, adjusted his pillows, and handed him his pain medication without being asked. He took it gratefully, his hands shaking slightly. "That was impressive," Vanessa said once he was settled. "The meeting. You're very good at what you do." "I've been running this company since I was 26. I'd better be good at it." His voice was strained. "How's the pain?" Scale of 1 to 10. 8, maybe 9. "The medication will kick in soon. Just breathe through it." Vanessa dampened a cloth with cool water and gently pressed it to his forehead. "You did 90 minutes. That's excellent for your first time up." It felt like 9 hours. He closed his eyes, leaning into the cool cloth. "Thank you for making me end it. If you hadn't, I would have pushed through another 30 minutes and probably passed out on camera. That's why I'm here, to stop you from doing stupid macho things." She replaced the cloth when it warmed up. "You need to rest now. No laptop, no phone calls, just rest. You're bossy when you're right, too. I'm bossy all the time. You'll get used to it." Over the following days, they fell into a rhythm. Vanessa woke early, prepared for Marcus's morning routine, and they worked together on the basic activities of daily living that most people took for granted. Bathing was awkward at first, both of them hyper-aware of the intimacy of the situation. But Vanessa's professional demeanor made it tolerable. She never treated him like anything other than a patient who needed care, never made him feel embarrassed or diminished by his dependence on her. They started physical therapy exercises, gentle at first. Just flexing his toes, rotating his ankles, careful movements of his arms and upper body. Vanessa pushed him, but never beyond what was safe. And Marcus, true to his word, didn't fight her on it. They talked during the exercises, Marcus telling her about his company, about the helicopter crash, about the pilot who hadn't survived. His name was David, Marcus said one afternoon, as Vanessa guided him through shoulder rotations. He'd been my pilot for 3 years, had 2 kids, a wife. He was 42 years old, and he died because of a mechanical failure that should never have happened. It wasn't your fault. Vanessa's hands were gentle on his shoulders, supporting his movements. I hired the helicopter company. I insisted on that route even though the weather was questionable. If I'd made different choices, then you might both be dead, or you might be fine. You can't know. Survivor's guilt is real, Marcus, and it's heavy. But you can't carry responsibility for things outside your control. He was quiet for a moment. His wife called me in the hospital. She said she didn't blame me, that David loved his job. But I could hear it in her voice, the grief. I put that there. No, an accident put that there. A mechanical failure put that there. Vanessa moved around to face him. You can honor David's memory by recovering, by living fully, by not wasting the second chance you've been given. But you can't bring him back by punishing yourself. Marcus met her eyes, and Vanessa saw moisture there. How do you always know what to say? Because I've watched a lot of people deal with trauma, and I've learned that sometimes the simplest truths are the most important ones. She handed him a tissue. It's okay to cry. Grief needs to come out. I don't cry. Everyone cries. It's human. Not me. I learned a long time ago that crying is weakness, and in my world, weakness gets you destroyed. Vanessa sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to offer comfort but not crowding him. Your world sounds exhausting. It is. He wiped his eyes roughly. But it's the only world I know. My father built Ashford Global from nothing. When he died and left it to me, everyone thought I'd fail. I was 26, unproven, too young. I had to be perfect, had to show no vulnerability. One mistake and the sharks would circle. And now? Vanessa asked gently. Now I'm trapped in bed with a shattered pelvis, and the sharks are definitely circling. I can feel it. My COO, Richard, he's loyal, but some of the board members. Marcus shook his head. This accident couldn't have come at a worse time. Or maybe it came at exactly the right time. When he looked at her quizzically, Vanessa continued. Maybe the universe was telling you that you need to slow down, to let other people carry some of the weight, to remember that you're human and not a machine. When did you become a philosopher? When I started spending 12 hours a day with a stubborn billionaire who thinks he's invincible. She stood, smoothing her scrubs. Now, we're going to try standing today, just for a few seconds with the walker. Your physical therapist recommended we start mobility work. Marcus's eyes widened. Standing? Vanessa, I can barely sit up without wanting to die. Which is why we're going to go very slowly. I'll support most of your weight. We're just getting your body used to being vertical again. She positioned the walker next to the bed. Trust me? Do I have a choice? Not really. Come on, let's do this. It took 15 minutes of careful maneuvering. Vanessa supporting him while he fought through the pain, but Marcus finally stood. Just for 10 seconds, most of his weight on the walker and Vanessa's shoulder, but he stood. When she helped him back to bed, he was sweating and shaking but grinning. I did it. You did it. Tomorrow we'll go for 15 seconds. Baby steps, literally. Vanessa? He caught her hand as she turned to leave. Thank you. Not just for this, but for everything. For not treating me like I'm broken. You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference. She squeezed his hand gently, then released it, needing to reestablish that professional boundary that seemed to get blurrier every day. Rest now. I'll check on you in an hour." Vanessa retreated to her room and leaned against the closed connecting door, her heart beating faster than it should. This was getting complicated. She'd been in the Ashford estate for 2 weeks now, and somewhere along the line, Marcus had stopped being just a patient and started being something else. Someone else. She looked forward to their conversations, found herself thinking about him even when she wasn't working, felt a warmth in her chest when he smiled at her. This was bad. This was very bad. Nurses weren't supposed to develop feelings for their patients. It was unethical, unprofessional, and a terrible idea on every possible level. But knowing that didn't seem to stop her heart from doing complicated things whenever Marcus looked at her with those intense, dark eyes. Her phone buzzed. Lily, as if she had some kind of best friend psychic connection. "How's the billionaire?" "Still grumpy?" Vanessa typed back. "He's making progress. Stood up today for the first time." "And? How are you doing? You've been weirdly quiet. Usually you call me every day." "I'm fine, just busy." "Vanessa Clark, I've known you since college. I can tell when you're hiding something. What's going on?" Vanessa stared at the phone, debating. Finally, she typed, "I think I might be developing feelings for my patient, which is terrible and wrong, and I don't know what to do about it." The phone rang immediately. Vanessa answered with a sigh. "I knew you'd call." "Of course I called. Vanessa, this is huge. You're falling for a billionaire." "I'm not falling for him. I'm just aware of him, in ways that are probably inappropriate. Does he feel the same way?" Lily's voice was excited, invested. "I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe, but then I remember that he's vulnerable right now, dependent on me, and any feelings he might have are probably just transference. Patients often develop attachments to their caregivers. It doesn't mean anything. Or maybe he genuinely likes you because you're smart and kind and beautiful, and you treat him like a person instead of a bank account. Lily, Vanessa, listen to me. You've been alone for 2 years since that disaster with Brandon. You deserve happiness. If this guy makes you happy, even if it's complicated, isn't that worth exploring? Not while I'm his nurse. The power dynamic is all wrong. He needs me for basic care. How can anything real develop in that context?" Lily was quiet for a moment. "Then wait. Do your job, help him recover, and when he doesn't need nursing care anymore, see what happens. If the feelings are still there once he's mobile and independent again, then they're real. That's months away. So, good things are worth waiting for, and in the meantime, there's nothing wrong with enjoying his company as long as you maintain professional boundaries." They talked for another 20 minutes, Lily offering her usual mix of terrible advice and genuine wisdom. By the time Vanessa hung up, she felt slightly better. Lily was right. She would wait. She would do her job with professionalism and competence, and if, when Marcus was recovered, something developed between them naturally, then they could explore it. But not now. Not while he needed her. She heard movement from Marcus's room and went to check on him. He'd managed to reach his laptop and was typing one-handed, his face scrunched in concentration. "You're supposed to be resting." "I am resting. I'm just resting while catching up on emails." "That's not resting. That's working." Vanessa closed the laptop despite his protest. "You just stood up for the first time in 3 weeks. Your body needs actual rest, not answering emails while lying down rest. You're impossible. So you've mentioned, multiple times." She fluffed his pillows unnecessarily, just to annoy him. "What do you do for fun, Marcus, when you're not working yourself into the ground?" He thought about it. "I don't know. I work, that's what I do. That's not healthy. Everyone needs hobbies. interests outside of work? Do you have hobbies? He turned the question back on her. I read. I bake. I volunteer at a community center teaching CPR classes. I have friends I see regularly. I have a life outside of nursing. Good for you. But he said it without sarcasm, almost wistfully. When you're recovered, you should think about developing some interests. Take up golf or something rich people do. I hate golf. Then take up something else. Painting, cooking, skydiving. I literally just survived a helicopter crash. I'm never leaving the ground again. Vanessa laughed. Fair point. But seriously, you need something. Otherwise, you're just going to bury yourself in work until you burn out or have another accident. Is this your professional medical opinion? This is my opinion as someone who's gotten to know you over the past 2 weeks. You're more than your company, Marcus. You're smart and funny and surprisingly thoughtful when you're not being stubborn. You should let yourself be a whole person, not just a CEO. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You see things other people don't see. Or maybe I'm just paying attention. That night, Vanessa was awakened by shouting from Marcus's room. She was through the connecting door in seconds, her heart pounding. Marcus was thrashing in bed, caught in a nightmare, his face contorted in terror. No! David! Pull up! Pull up! Marcus, wake up. You're dreaming. Vanessa carefully touched his shoulder, not wanting to startle him. Marcus, you're safe. You're home. His eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. For a moment, he didn't seem to see her. Then recognition dawned, followed by embarrassment. Vanessa, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. It's okay. You were having a nightmare about the crash. She sat on the edge of the bed. Do you want to talk about it? No. Yes. I don't know. He pushed his hair back with a shaking hand. It's the same dream every night. We're falling, and I can see David trying to control the helicopter, and I know we're going to crash, and I can't do anything to stop it. That sounds terrifying. The worst part is right before impact. In the dream, David turns to me and says, I'm sorry. Like it was his fault, like he failed me. But he didn't fail anyone. The helicopter failed. The maintenance company failed. David did everything right, and he still died. Vanessa reached out and took his hand without thinking, just offering comfort. Have you talked to anyone about this? A therapist? I don't do therapy. Maybe you should. PTSD is real. Marcus, you went through something traumatic. It's not weak to get help processing it. In my world, therapy is admitting you can't handle things. That's weakness. In my world, therapy is recognizing that you're human and need support. That's strength. She squeezed his hand. Will you at least think about it? Maybe. He looked down at their joined hands. You didn't pull away. What? Your hand. You took mine, and you haven't let go. His voice was soft, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard. Vanessa realized he was right. Their fingers were still intertwined, and it felt natural. Right? Slowly, reluctantly, she pulled her hand back. I'm sorry. That was unprofessional. Don't apologize. It was nice. I haven't had anyone just hold my hand in a long time. They sat in silence for a moment, the air thick with unspoken things. Finally, Vanessa stood. Try to get some more sleep. I'll leave the connecting door open. If you have another nightmare, call for me. Vanessa! His voice stopped her. Will you stay? Just until I fall asleep? I know it's asking a lot, but I'll stay. She pulled the chair close to the bed and sat down. Close your eyes. I'm right here. Marcus settled back against his pillows, his eyes drifting shut. Vanessa watched his face relax gradually, his breathing even out. She found herself memorizing the angles of his features, the way his dark lashes rested against his cheeks, the vulnerability he only showed when he thought no one was watching. This man, she realized, had gotten under her skin in a way she hadn't expected and didn't quite know how to handle. She stayed until she was certain he was deeply asleep, then crept back to her own room. But she left the connecting door open, just in case he needed her. 3 weeks into Vanessa's tenure at the Ashford estate, Marcus had his first visitor. Richard Chen, his COO and assistant, had been stopping by daily for work matters. But this was different. Victoria Hawthorne, the company's VP of marketing, and Vanessa learned from Mrs. Henderson's subtle gossip, Marcus's ex-girlfriend, swept into the estate like she owned it. Vanessa was in Marcus's room, helping him with the exercises that had become part of their daily routine, when they heard heels clicking in the hallway. Marcus's whole body tensed. "That's Victoria." "Should I leave?" Vanessa asked. Before Marcus could answer, the door opened without a knock. A woman in her early 30s entered, immaculately dressed in a designer suit, her blonde hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She was objectively beautiful, all sharp angles and expensive polish, and the way she looked at Vanessa, a quick, dismissive scan, made it clear she'd sized her up and found her lacking. "Marcus, darling, I had to see for myself how you were doing." "Victoria, I wasn't expecting you." Marcus's tone was carefully neutral, but Vanessa could feel the tension radiating off him. "Well, when the CEO is laid up for weeks, someone has to check on things." Victoria's eyes flicked to Vanessa again. "You're the nurse, I assume? You can go. I'd like some private time with Marcus." Vanessa looked at Marcus, waiting for his cue. He gave a tiny shake of his head. "Vanessa stays." "We were in the middle of physical therapy." Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Surely that can wait?" "Actually, it can't. We have a schedule. My recovery depends on consistency." Marcus gestured to Vanessa. "Continue with the leg lifts." Vanessa resumed the exercises, carefully lifting Marcus's uninjured left leg and helping him hold it elevated. She tried to fade into the background, but Victoria's presence was like a storm system that filled the entire room. "I've reviewed the Q3 numbers," Victoria said, perching on the edge of the bed in a way that seemed simultaneously casual and territorial. "The board is concerned about the leadership vacuum. Jenkins is pushing for an interim CEO appointment." "Jenkins can push all he wants. I'm still in charge." Marcus's jaw tightened, and Vanessa noticed him automatically tensing his core, a bad habit she'd been trying to break. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, a reminder to relax. He immediately softened. Victoria noticed the exchange, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Of course you're still in charge. But appearances matter, Marcus. The board needs to see you're capable. Maybe you should attend the next meeting in person." "He can't travel yet," Vanessa interjected, before thinking better of it. "His pelvis isn't healed enough for a car ride to Manhattan, let alone sitting through a multi-hour meeting." Victoria turned to her with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I wasn't asking for medical advice." "Good, because I wasn't giving it. I was stating facts." Vanessa met her gaze steadily. "Marcus's recovery is on track. But only because we're following the protocol strictly. Pushing too hard too fast could set him back months." "How dedicated." Victoria's tone made it clear she thought Vanessa was overstepping. She turned back to Marcus. "The company needs you, darling. We all do. I need you." There was subtext there, layers of meaning that Vanessa didn't want to analyze. She focused on the exercises, counting reps in her head, trying to give them privacy within the confines of the room she couldn't leave. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I'm managing things from here. Richard keeps me updated constantly." "Richard is wonderful, but he's not you. No one commands a room like you do." Victoria reached out and touched Marcus's hand, a gesture that seemed intimate and familiar. I miss working directly with you, and I miss other things. Vanessa's stomach twisted unexpectedly. She had no right to feel jealous. Marcus's past relationships were none of her business, but watching Victoria touch him, watching the easy familiarity between them, made something ache in her chest. I think that's enough exercises for now, Vanessa said, carefully lowering Marcus's leg. You should rest before lunch. I can take it from here, Victoria said smoothly. Stay for lunch, won't you, Marcus? We have so much to discuss. Actually, I need to check his vitals and administer his noon medications, Vanessa said, not backing down. Hospital protocol. How very thorough. Victoria stood, smoothing her skirt. Fine. Marcus, I'll come back tomorrow. We can discuss the Jenkins situation and the Asian expansion in more detail. Rest well, darling. She leaned down and kissed his cheek, a gesture that lasted a beat too long, then swept out of the room with the same dramatic flair she'd entered with. The moment the door closed, Marcus let out a long breath. I'm sorry about that. You don't have to apologize. She's your colleague, and clearly more than that at some point. Vanessa busied herself with checking his blood pressure, needing something clinical and professional to focus on. We dated briefly about a year ago. It didn't work out. Victoria wanted something I couldn't give her, which was emotions, vulnerability, access to the parts of myself I keep locked away. Marcus watched Vanessa as she noted his vitals. She wanted all of me, and I couldn't do it. So we ended things, stayed professional. Mostly. She doesn't seem over it. Vanessa moved to prepare his medications. Victoria doesn't like not getting what she wants, and she really doesn't like you. Marcus said it matter-of-factly, no judgment. I noticed. Vanessa handed him his pills and water. Why do you think that is? Because you have something she never did. When Vanessa looked at him questioningly, he continued. My trust. You've seen me at my absolute lowest, and you've never used it against me. You've never made me feel small or weak. Victoria, for all her good qualities, always had an agenda. With you, I never feel like I have to perform or be anyone other than who I am. Vanessa's heart did that complicated gymnastics routine again. That's just basic human decency. In my world, basic human decency is rarer than you'd think. He set down the water glass. Vanessa, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in his tone made her nervous. Okay. I'm starting to care about you, in ways that go beyond the nurse-patient relationship. And I know that's probably inappropriate and bad timing and a terrible idea. But I promised myself after the crash that if I survived, I'd stop hiding from things that scared me. And you scare me. Vanessa's mouth went dry. I scare you, terrify me, because you make me want things I've never wanted before. A real connection. Someone who knows all my flaws and vulnerabilities and stays anyway. I know I'm not supposed to feel this way about my nurse, but stop! Vanessa held up a hand, her heart pounding. Marcus, you're injured and vulnerable. What you're feeling is transference. It's common for patients to develop feelings for their caregivers. It's not real. Don't tell me what I'm feeling isn't real. His voice was firm but not angry. I've spent my entire adult life analyzing situations, reading people, making decisions based on facts and instincts. This isn't confusion, or gratitude, or transference. This is me, fully aware and clear-headed, telling you that I have feelings for you. Vanessa sank into her chair, her legs suddenly unsteady. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You've thought about it too? Hope flickered in his eyes. Of course I have. I'm human, Marcus. You're intelligent and funny, and surprisingly sweet when you're not being impossible. But that doesn't mean we should act on it." She leaned forward, needing him to understand. "You need me right now. For medical care, for support, for basic daily activities. Any relationship that develops in this context would be built on an unequal foundation. So what do? We wait." Vanessa's voice was gentle but firm. "I do my job. You focus on recovery. And when you don't need nursing care anymore, when you're mobile and independent, and we can interact as equals, then we can see if these feelings are still there. If they are, we'll talk about it. But not now. Not while I'm your caregiver." Marcus studied her for a long moment. "That's very rational. One of us has to be." She managed a small smile. "Can you live with that? Waiting? Do I have a choice? Not if you want me to stay. I can't provide proper care if there's emotional complications muddying the waters. My professional ethics won't allow it. Then I'll wait." He reached out and took her hand, just for a moment, a brief connection. "But Vanessa, I'm not good at patience, so recover quickly is going to become my new obsession. Then I guess I'll have to make your physical therapy extra challenging. Can't have you getting better too fast." She was teasing, trying to lighten the heavy emotion in the room. "You're cruel. I've been telling you that for weeks." They smiled at each other, and something shifted between them. The feelings were acknowledged now, out in the open but contained, waiting for the right time. Vanessa felt both relieved and terrified. She'd admitted, at least to herself, that she had feelings for Marcus Ashford, and he'd admitted the same. But she'd also set a boundary, created a timeline that ensured anything between them would develop properly when they were on equal footing. Over the following weeks, that unspoken understanding colored everything. The morning routines became charged with new awareness. The physical therapy sessions, where Vanessa's hands guided Marcus's movements, felt almost unbearably intimate. They talked for hours, learning about each other in ways that went far beyond medical history and recovery protocols. Marcus told her about his childhood, about a father who demanded perfection and a mother who died when he was 12, about taking over the company at 26 and feeling like an imposter every single day for the first 2 years, about the loneliness of being at the top, surrounded by people who wanted something from you, but never really seeing you. Vanessa shared her own story, growing up in a middle-class family, her father a teacher, and her mother a librarian. Her decision to become a nurse after her grandmother's long illness showed her the importance of compassionate care. Her disastrous relationship with Brandon, her ex-boyfriend, who'd cheated on her and somehow made her feel like it was her fault. Her determination to be independent, to never need anyone the way she'd needed him. He was an idiot, Marcus said after hearing the Brandon story. They were in the garden, Marcus in his wheelchair for his daily hour of fresh air, Vanessa sitting on a stone bench nearby. "Anyone who would cheat on you doesn't deserve you. That's what Lily says, my best friend. She's threatened to hunt Brandon down and key his car multiple times. I like Lily already." Marcus tilted his face toward the sun, soaking in the warmth. "You know what I realized the other day?" "What?" "I'm happy. Actually happy. Maybe for the first time in years. Despite being stuck in a wheelchair with a pelvis that feels like it's held together with duct tape, I'm happy." He looked at her. "Because of you." Vanessa's chest tightened. "Marcus, I know. We're waiting. I respect that, I do. But I'm allowed to tell you that you've changed my life. Accident aside, meeting you has been the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. You're going to make me cry, and I'm supposed to be the professional here. Please don't cry. I can't come over there and comfort you, and it'll drive me crazy." Vanessa laughed through the tears that were threatening. "You're impossible." "So you keep saying." Victoria continued to visit, her presence always disrupting the peaceful bubble Vanessa and Marcus had created. She was never overtly rude, but her subtle digs and proprietary air around Marcus made Vanessa uncomfortable. And the way Marcus tensed every time Victoria arrived made it clear he felt the same. "Why do you let her keep coming?" Vanessa asked one evening after Victoria had left from yet another business meeting that had felt more personal than professional. "Because she's right about one thing. I need to stay connected to the company. And Victoria, whatever her faults, is excellent at her job. She keeps me looped in. Makes sure the board doesn't stage a coup while I'm recovering. She also makes you miserable. I can see it." Marcus sighed. "She wants what we had back, or what she thinks we had. But I can't give her that. Not anymore. Not after... After what? After I've seen what it could be like with someone else." He met Vanessa's eyes, and the meaning was crystal clear. Vanessa's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. "Lily, how's the billionaire love story? Please tell me there's been dramatic confessions and stolen kisses." Vanessa typed back, "There's been confessions. No kisses. Professional boundaries, remember?" "Ugh, you're boring. Fine, be ethical and responsible. But when this is all over, and you do kiss him, I want details." 2 months into Marcus's recovery, his orthopedic surgeon came to the estate for a follow-up appointment. Dr. Patel, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, examined Marcus thoroughly, reviewed his x-rays, and tested his mobility. Vanessa hovered nearby, anxious about the results. "Well, Mr. Ashford," Dr. Patel finally said, "I'm impressed. Your recovery is ahead of schedule. The fracture is healing beautifully. Your range of motion is excellent given the severity of the injury. At this rate, you'll be on crutches within 2 weeks and walking unassisted in another month." Marcus's face lit up, and he immediately looked at Vanessa. "You hear that? Your torture sessions are working. They're called physical therapy, not torture, but I'll take the compliment." Vanessa couldn't help but smile. Marcus was going to recover fully. He was going to walk again, return to his normal life, which meant their waiting period was almost over. The thought filled her with equal parts excitement and terror. After Dr. Patel left, Marcus was energized in a way Vanessa hadn't seen since before the accident. 1 month, maybe 6 weeks. Then I won't need constant nursing care anymore. I mean, I'll still need physical therapy and check-ins, but not full-time care. That's wonderful, Marcus. You've worked so hard for this. Vanessa, he caught her hand as she moved past the bed. When I'm recovered, when I don't need you as my nurse anymore, will you stay? Stay? Here. With me. Not as my nurse, but as whatever you want to be. Friend. More than friend. Whatever you're comfortable with. I just don't want to lose you when this ends. Vanessa squeezed his hand, her heart full. We'll figure it out. Together. Together. I like the sound of that. Their first date was at a small Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village, far from the high-end establishments Marcus usually frequented. Vanessa wore a simple blue dress. Marcus was in dark jeans and a button-down shirt, moving carefully but confidently on his crutches. They talked for hours, laughing over shared pasta, their conversation flowing as naturally as it had in his bedroom, but without the weight of medical protocols between them. "This is nice," Marcus said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Being normal. Just 2 people on a date. You're not worried about paparazzi? Recognition? Let them see. I'm not hiding you, Vanessa. I'm done hiding everything." Over the following months, they built something real. Marcus returned to work part-time, finding balance he'd never had before. Vanessa took on new patients, but made time for their relationship. They navigated the complications of their different worlds, the judgment from Marcus's social circle, the media attention when their relationship went public, Victoria's barely concealed hostility. But through it all, they had each other. The foundation they'd built during Marcus's recovery proved unshakable. They'd seen each other at their most vulnerable, most honest, and they'd chosen each other anyway. 6 months after their first date, Marcus proposed. Not at a fancy restaurant or with some elaborate production, but in his bedroom where they'd first truly connected, where Vanessa had pushed him to heal and he'd learned to trust again. "Marry me," he said simply, holding out a ring. "Not because you saved my life, but because you made it worth living." Vanessa said yes through tears, and as Marcus pulled her close, standing on his own 2 feet, fully healed, she knew that sometimes the best love stories start with an accident. Sometimes you have to be broken to find the person who will help you heal. And sometimes mistaking someone for a burglar when you're actually their nurse is just the universe's way of bringing 2 people together who were always meant to